Yes, everybody, welcome back to What the Devil edition 59 on the United View YouTube channel. We are back with another live stream. We're going to be talking about Rúben Amorim. We're going to be talking about the Lyon game. We're talking about Marcus Rashford, transfers, everything, all that. And we've got a bumper episode of 4 of us on today. Nick is back once again with us.
We're back.
And then it's also lovely to welcome back Firms, and after a much longer hiatus, Raf is back as well.
Big up everyone,
Big up everyone.
Let's go.
Welcome both of you back. But so the big thing, obviously, today is that in about 7.5 hours' time, we're going to be kicking off second leg of the biggest European fixture this week. At least for people in this room. But a quarter-final, second leg, Europa League against Lyon, and it's got the same amount of, I think, financial implications potentially as, you know, when teams play in the Championship playoff final, right? And it's like you win this game, you get like 130, 170 million. If we win this game, obviously, if we lose this game, we lose out on the chance of between 85 to 100 million quid in potential Champions League football next season, which is crazy. And Amorim's been speaking about that, you know, the implication of that and everything. But also as well, it's a knockout fixture, a European knockout fixture at Old Trafford. And we spoke about this a little bit before we went live. How hyped everyone was for the Barcelona one a few years ago. It's all pretty much the same situation, wasn't it? It was second leg, quarter-final at Old Trafford.
Was it round of 16?
In the Europa League.
It was round of 16.
Round of 16, but it was a knockout game at Old Trafford.
We lost against Sevilla after with De Gea's clanger. Do you remember that? Away at Sevilla,
But again, and it was a 2-2 in the first leg away from home, coming back to Old Trafford. And United, they're shelling out for this one as well. It's the first ever TIFO. The club of... I don't know what it's going to be.
I have no idea.
Apparently, Bruno Fernandes has approved it.
Yeah, I saw that.
So we don't know what it's going to look like. You know what? Than the smoke we did, the pyros in before the Sociedad game.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
because they were pathetic. Yeah, they were so bad.
When was it as well? Recently, it wasn't a tifo, but it was like a huge flag sort of thing. I think that was
also the Sociedad game, no?
Was it? But there was one that I remember that we just didn't spread properly across Stretford.
It was bad.
And it didn't spread across the whole thing, and it was like, we tried, but
I honestly think
today's hopefully it's better.
I think that's why we've done a TIFO this time, is because you can't go wrong. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Yeah. But I want to start off by talking about the Lyon game, because obviously that is the major thing that is happening. Yeah. And last result was a Newcastle result, and that was a 4-1 loss. That was pretty poor. But Amorim made a load of changes to the Newcastle. You had Harry Amas starting, you had Victor Lindelof starting, Manuel Ugarte playing 90 minutes, and who else played?
Who came in? Well, Xerxes started.
Xerxes started.
Obviously, he's not really
he's obviously out for the season now.
Started. Ericsson.
Oh yeah, Ericsson as well. So
yeah,
I'll take Bayern. I reckon there's going to be 5 or 6 changes to the lineup that we're going to line up late today. And I've been banging on about this for weeks. I really think, hope and want Mason Mount will start. I really want him to, because I know Amorim keeps going on about managing players' minutes and all of that. But we've now lost Xerxes, right? So we've lost the player, I would say, in our front 3, not counting Bruno, who's the most intelligent, right? I'd say Xerxes out of that front 3 that we normally play, assuming Bruno's playing deeper. It's Xerxes who seems like the most intelligent footballer, kind of
easiest to
kick.
Not close.
But we've lost him now, right?
I know. Yeah.
But we've lost him, and he's gone for the next, the 7-8 games, whatever, that are left this season. So I really think that the only way that he can be replaced is by starting Mason Mount on the left of the 10.
Yeah, I mean, we're short for options. My only problem with that is, I think near the goal, we need to be clinical. And when you look at Højlund, as we've mentioned already, Garnacho, these are players who, yes, they are our only 2 forwards available for this fixture, but those 2 players have been so unreliable and just not clinical enough, nowhere near the standards that are needed to perform at this club. So that's why I would perhaps say maybe we put Bruno in that front 3, just so that we have that control in the middle with maybe Ugarte and Casemiro, but then also Bruno, we can rely on him that if he gets a chance, 9 times out of 10, he's going to take that chance. He's going to make the right choice and hopefully get us a goal or 2. So I'll probably put Bruno in the front 3. And even if we want to play Mount, maybe play him behind Bruno, just so we can be more clinical.
What, in the deeper
In the
positions.
two, yeah. I'll play Mount next to Ugarte or next to Casemiro.
Really?
Yeah, I would.
What?
I would.
I don't see that. Because
It will never happen.
it's never happened
if you were playing both Mount and Bruno and you want one of them to play deeper, surely it's Bruno Fernandes. He's been so good.
Well, it
The
depends on how you
quarterback
look at it.
Yeah.
If you play Bruno deeper, then you get that sort of deep lying playmaker, a lot more control in the game. However, if you play Mount deeper, then you've got legs. You know, Mount can get about the pitch quite well as well. And as I said, you have that. You have someone who's a bit more clinical up front. I don't trust that Mount will make the right decision or finish correctly. Same as Højlund, same as Garnacho on the front three.
But isn't like Bruno Fernandes is also like I'd say the definition of having legs in midfield. That guy runs everywhere and does everything. I really think that. So we played Casemiro and Ugarte both against Lyon in the first leg, and then Casemiro didn't play at all against Newcastle, and Ugarte played 90 minutes for the first time in a long time. Ugarte's not played 90 minutes in a while.
Yeah.
I really think that indicates that Ugarte's not going to start tonight.
And Bruno's going to drop in.
And Bruno's going to drop in, which then has Højlund up top, Garnacho on the right, because we still need a runner, and then I think Mount on the left, because I think
That
Mount...
front three is just...
Did you think
not
it was
it.
a good decision to play Ugarte?
I think it's the best decision when thinking about this Lyon game, because I didn't want Casemiro playing 70, 80 minutes against that Newcastle midfield, getting run, because any midfielder I think that we play against that Newcastle midfield would get run ragged, and Ugarte did. Right, I'd rather Ugarte is the one that got run ragged against midfield, so that Casemiro can play in the Europa League against Lyon and give us a bit more security. And because Casemiro's been playing, the reason that he's been so good, I keep saying this on the pod, is because we're now playing a bit more compact midfield, and Casemiro's not covering as much space.
He's also got three behind him as well.
He's got three behind him, meaning that if we play Casemiro in that holding role, and he does because he's not been going forward too much recently. Casemiro, he's pretty much stayed in the midfield third and our defensive third, and then play Bruno next to him, and Bruno just does the thing that Bruno Fernandes does, where he plays every position anyway. We'll then have four attackers, pretty much. Bruno kind of the link between midfield and attack, and then Mason Mount up there, who can combine either with Bruno or will combine with Dorgu. Oh yeah, that's the only reason I want to say Mason Mount. I want to say Mason Mount on the left, because that means that I think Dorgu will become much more involved in the game.
Yeah, because
when
Mason Mount will actually pass to him.
Exactly,
Unlike
that's what I mean.
Unlike Garnacho, just goes, "Oh, you're making an overlapping run. Let me shoot."
Just ignore him every time.
Yeah, well, because Garnacho just uses Dorgu as a decoy to then cut in and shoot.
Yeah.
I think Mount will play with, not even just play to him, but play with him. And I think on that left, the intelligence that Mount has, and Mount is such a 1-2 touch player. He always has been, always will be. That will really help us. And I think will help Højlund as well. Like we saw Luke Shaw, right? Putting one cross to Højlund when Højlund came on against Luke Shaw, by the way. He created two chances in 12 minutes. That's as many as Bruno Fernandes did in the entire game, and no one created more than him.
Shows
Do you think he will start?
I don't think he'll start, but I just mean in the way that shows that cross the ball.
Yeah.
And we have Dorgu who can cross the ball, and if Mount passes to Dorgu can cross the ball, and we can make chances.
That cameo alone from Luke Shaw shows how much we've missed having a technically good fullback. Because if you look to Erik ten Hag's first season, I think one of the better seasons we've had since Fergie, he was a mainstay in that team.
Yeah.
He was so much the reason why Rashford was good that season was because Luke Shaw was good that season, and he was available pretty much all the time. So that little cameo in itself shows what we've missed. In terms of Bruno and Mason Mount, I think I would like to see Bruno deeper along with Casemiro. Firstly, because Casemiro has been good, so keep him going. Why not? Ugarte, I feel like his form is up and down a little bit, because I think his off the ball work is fairly good. Sometimes he make rash decisions, but then on the ball sometimes he's not quite doing it. So I would like to see Bruno, because that quarterback kind of role that Bruno is playing right now, 2 years ago I would have never said Bruno could do that, because Bruno has never really been the kind of player to take the ball, spin and bring us forward. He's always been, I'm thereabouts, get the ball to me and I'll create. Whereas now he's actually saying, I'll get the ball deeper and I'll progress us forward. So that's really good from him. So I would like to see him continue in that role. My reservations with Mason Mount is his injury record. I mean, like the last time he started a game against Man City, he pulled up.
Of course.
His muscle, his hamstrings, his groin, he's got so many problems. And that's also another problem with Mason Mount in the 8, because he has legs, but I'm just always fearful that he's going to pull up again.
But
that's
the
my main
problem
thing.
is you can't have a player like that in your squad and then just refuse to play him out of the fear that he could get injured.
He's going to play. He will definitely play. I think
he'll come on all-star either way. Yeah.
And like you said earlier, we ain't got much choice.
We are quite limited.
Yeah.
To be honest, the game worries me.
Yeah,
It worries me a lot. It does really worry me a lot because Man United is a team where we need a lot of confidence. We need the confidence, and Xerxes was bringing that confidence to the team. His performances was slightly hinging on, we can depend on you, look to you to get us out of this mud. Now he's gone. It feels like when we lost, we was up against Arsenal, we lost Casemiro against Villa or something like that, and then we was just in a position where it was like, oh, what are we going to do? We've lost the game. That's how I'm feeling right now, but I think we might just have enough to get over the game. And I think with Mason Mount, I still feel like he needs a lot more minutes in his legs for him to be impacting the game how I feel like he can impact the game. I feel like when he's been coming on recently, sometimes he goes missing throughout huge parts of the game. Sometimes
never builds momentum.
Yeah, he never builds up momentum. He might have like an odd shot here and there, then for the rest of the game, you just don't see him. And I want to be in a position where, like with Garnacho, for example, he's always active, he's always there. You always either pulling your hair out of Garnacho because he's made the wrong pass, or do you know what I mean? He's hoofing it over the net. I want to see Mason Mount. I want to be able to see an impact of him, feel his presence in the game. And I don't think I'm getting that at the minute. So he is an added body, but I just really want him to come alive, and it's now that we need him to do that. So whether he's doing it from a deeper position or in a number 10 position, I don't really mind that. I feel like we just need to
Mount's also, it was a different system to the one Amorim's playing now, but the wide 10 place, right, he won a Champions League in that place. He won a Champions League title. He got a Champions League title winning assist against City as a left 10.
Right 10? Left 10? Either way.
His pass, he might be remember, but his pass was from the left.
From the left. It was
from the left. I remember that so vividly, man.
He was so good for Tuchel.
Yeah, this is what I mean. I know that there's so much, obviously, frustration around Mount, and it's the same. But I think that frustration doesn't necessarily come from the same frustration that people have with Højlund or Garnacho or Ugarte. It's frustration because people know what he can be. Same with Shaw, right? It's the same kind of Shaw frustration. They're in a bit of it's the two of them are in a bit of the same category at the moment if they just keep getting injured. But I think Mount must start as a left 10.
I think you mentioned earlier Barcelona and us playing them a couple of years ago under Ten Hag when we won 2-1 with the Anthony and Fred goals. I think what fares me about this game is actually our defence and the potential for mistakes. When you look back to that time, we played with a nearly fully fit team at that stage, and we were in good form in Europe and also in the Premier League. I think what were we, third, second,
something
around
like that,
then. And then we weren't making as many mistakes. Whereas today, we don't have a great squad at the moment. We're not in good form. We haven't been in good form the whole season, and there are many mistakes. We make a lot of mistakes.
Two
so I think
keepers
it's
that's
different.
not informed.
Two keepers that are not informed.
You know, but the thing about that, you just mentioned the defence. I would disagree as a whole. Our defence, I think, has actually been pretty decent.
Mazraoui,
but
it's improved.
But before the Newcastle game, I'd say we locked up City. They had the fewest touches, I think, in an opposition areas they have all season when they played us. Both. I think the two games we've played against them under Amorim, they've had fewer touches in the box than against any other team. Against Forest, I thought we were actually pretty decent, bar that one moment against the Langer, right? And then I think, bar Onana's blunders against Lyon, we would have kept a clean sheet. And I think we've actually defended recently.
To be fair, the first half against Newcastle was good.
Yeah.
It was the second half where we capitulated, where mistakes crept in and heads dropped, and we've seen that before. But the first half was pretty good, to be fair. I thought Euro was coming into his own a little bit.
For sure.
And I'll be honest, you know what as well, it's been said, but that whole Thierry Henry thing on Euro, why? I really don't understand that. As a French legend as well, Euro is probably someone who looked up to you growing up. He's a 19-year-old centre-back in the Premier League. I didn't really get why you had to dig him out on Monday Night Football. I didn't really like that. But I think Euro's looking good. Mazraoui's been pretty solid. I know he slipped against Newcastle, but he's been pretty good.
Maguire's coming back into the starting 11.
We missed the lit.
We missed the lit, but we do have Maguire coming back in for this game, right? I think he's good. He's
a good enough replacement.
As a central centre-back, he's fine.
Yeah, I agree. It's a miss.
I agree. De Ligt is a miss, but I think having Harry Maguire to come in for De Ligt, I think will be fine. We had Victor Lindelof starting as our central centre-back against.
I don't want to see that again.
Against Newcastle. But that's because Amorim wanted to save, in the same way that I think he saved Casemiro, he saved Maguire for this game.
It's a wise choice.
Yeah.
I think overall, I am fairly confident about this game. I think we'll win the game. I just think
I'm nervous,
if anything
but
happens,
I'm not worried.
It's going to be due
That makes
to
sense.
not the quality like Barcelona had last time with Lewandowski. It's going to be due to our own errors, our own mistakes, because that's where we can see
That's why I'm
goals.
nervous, because it's almost like we start with a deficit these days.
Knowing someone's going to make a mistake.
I know, it's always like a handicap match.
And we need 2 goals all the time.
We
Never
always,
just one.
exactly,
Yeah,
that's my
yeah,
issue.
yeah,
We
yeah.
always need 2 goals.
Yeah.
And where the goals don't come along easily for us, it's going to be like, you know, I'm just worried, man. I'm worried. I was really hoping Bayern came into the squad.
And done well.
He done well, and then we can at least park that.
I don't think Bayern was actually that horrible against Newcastle until he had that blunder for the 4th.
Yeah.
I thought he was fine, right?
Yeah.
It's all right.
He wasn't fantastic or anything, but I thought he was actually okay until he made that mistake against Newcastle. I kind of think that's kind of ruined his chances.
It's a really, really poor mistake.
Yeah.
Do you see it going into extra time? Just to finish it.
I can see it going into extra time.
It's us.
Because
It's Man United.
that's the kind of thing that we would do.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember, who did we play in the 2017 run? Where it was like Anderlecht or something, and the game went into extra time, and it was just.
I remember.
I just remember it feels like we mentioned the Barcelona game. It just feels like one of those games where it's not going to be won by quality. It's going to be lost by incompetence. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I hear
Or
it.
errors.
Because there was a few errors in Lyon's game when we played. I mean, like the Xerxes goal, it was like them losing possession and Kobe getting to it first, and Xerxes getting the header when centre. So yeah, there's mistakes in their game as well.
Kobe Mainu.
Yeah. I thought about that during the Mason Mount conversation, but again, I think he's only made 2 cameo appearances, so I can't see him starting really.
bench,
but a good option to come off the
What
bench,
about
especially
then?
if Lyon. It depends, because obviously if Lyon sit in, say if they score, which hopefully they don't, but say if they score and they decide, right, we want to sit in, Kobe's the perfect kind of player to bring in for that. In tight spaces, small spaces, he can make something
That's where I was
happen.
thinking Mount
Where
would be
you
good.
were mentioning having, you said Bruno deeper with Casemiro next to him.
I prefer
Yeah.
that.
Would you not consider maybe Casemiro next to Manu, and then maybe putting Bruno in the front 3?
I think the best situation, if you're worried, because obviously you mentioned you're worried about Mount's minutes, and we're saying that Manu hasn't had loads of minutes, so shouldn't necessarily start. What about if we had Mount for 60 and then Manu came on for Mount?
Could
kind
happen,
of thing.
yeah,
Because
could
also,
happen, yeah.
in terms of profiles, that's not an overly different.
No, not at all.
That's a fairly like-for-like switch in terms, so we could play a game with a technical good player with the ball at his feet on the left. Garnacho as a runner on the right. Højlund is, I don't know, it's Rasmus Højlund. And then Bruno obviously will play 90 minutes. I think Casemiro will probably play 80, 90 minutes. And then if we've got Mount, if you're worried about Mount not being able to play 90, Mount comes off at 60, 65, and then Manu comes on.
Yeah, could happen. Yeah.
And then that means that the profiles are kind of similar. I'm just thinking about this now. That's now what I want to see.
Yeah, it would be
I've
good.
decided that now. That's what I want to see.
Because that's the person that needs to come.
Penalties. Ooh,
Mason or Mount.
Mason.
Double M.
I don't want to think about penalties.
Yeah, I don't want to see it go penalties.
Well, I'll think about penalties at 10:30, if they happen.
Oh, here's a question. If we do go penalties, who would you say, if it's blank, like you can pick whoever you want, who would you rather have in goal, Bayern or Onana?
Bayern there.
Onana.
Easy.
Ooh.
Easy.
Onana.
Bayern
I
there.
think Onana is more likely to take this as an opportunity to win back fans. I think if it gets the penalties, big statement.
Bayern did have the good penalty
Arsenal.
shootout against Arsenal.
Yeah, he did.
He did, but I think that was pure adrenaline coming through the fact that he was good against Arsenal in the game.
Could be
I
the
don't
same
know.
thing again.
It's the
I
biggest game
trust
of our
I
season.
trust Onana not to shrink more than I trust
Yeah.
Bayern not
that's
to
what
shrink.
I'm saying.
That's the way I'm going to phrase
Does
that.
Onana save penalties for us?
He has saved a couple.
Do you remember the Copenhagen one, Champions League?
Yeah.
Last minute when Harry Maguire scored the header and then they got a
then-
penalty and he saved.
and he
I went
saved
nuts
it.
with that.
Yeah.
I went nuts.
That was a
But
good.
yeah.
That was a good day.
That was a good day. Yeah.
But that's kind of. I think we all agree then that there's needs to be big changes to this team.
Yes.
And I think it's United. I do this every week. Touch wood. And over here as well. Touch wood. It's United's to lose.
Yeah. When you go into it 2-2 and you're at home, yeah, it is yours. I think one thing as well, I think is it could potentially be won or lost at either end of the pitch for us. Onana in net and Højlund up top. If Højlund's doing nothing like he kind of has been for a while now, it's like if we don't really create anything for him, if he can't create chances for himself, we could be in trouble. If Onana's, making mistakes again, blunders here and there, we could also be in trouble. Those are two very, very important positions, especially because Bayern started last one, Onana comes in for this one. Xerxes started the last one, does well. Højlund comes in for this one. Those are two very important positions for us today, and I'm a bit worried about both of them, if I'm being completely honest.
It's one of those things we're just going to have to wait and see.
It should hopefully be a game in which Onana shouldn't have too much to do. As you said,
I think we're going to be on the ball.
Yeah.
I think we're going to dominate, be on the ball.
Yeah.
I really do. I hope that's how we set out.
Yeah.
Which is why I want to see, which basically comes back to the first point I made about wanting to see Bruno deeper.
Yeah.
It's because we're going to be on the ball.
Yeah.
I want to see Bruno on the ball, so the earlier and quicker he gets on the ball, the better off we're going to be.
Make things happen,
Yeah. But I want to move on now to a slightly more general topic about Rúben Amorim. So there's obviously been a lot of talk and comments and opinion about Amorim since he came in, because it's been a very controversial first 5 months. Right, there's been lots of talk about him not changing the system or not playing the right players or pushing the wrong players out the club, blah, blah, blah. But they all kind of amounted yesterday to a question, and Jamie Jackson was trying to gegenpress him into a soundbite about...
Gegenpress him.
He was, man. He genuinely was.
That was good.
Into a soundbite, and I think that Amorim is very good with dealing, I think, overall with questions, the media and the pressure and everything. He's been very candid, very honest, which has been very refreshing, compared to like previous managers may have been a bit too non-answery, reclusive, and kind of not giving anything to anyone.
Ten Hag.
Yes. But so I kind of want to talk about, I think, that some of the shit that he's had to deal with, Amorim, has been because the British media, specifically journalists, are getting so annoyed that Amorim isn't falling for their traps, that they're laying more and more and more and more onto him. And I think it's getting ridiculous. I really think it's getting a bit ridiculous now, because I think for someone who's realistically a young manager, he's 40, he's like, what, 14 years younger than Ten Hag or something, who was obviously our last manager, and he's the youngest manager we've had in God knows how long.
Maybe forever.
Potentially
forever. I don't know, like maybe
I'm not sure of the stats, but he's going to, I think he's done so well, and I really think that there's people are starting to ignore what's actually happening.
Yeah, but are you
in order
ignoring
to
the fact that...
Are
you ignoring the fact that his first 5 months have actually been quite bad? That is the honest truth. You mentioned it was controversial. The truth of it is you definitely did not expect us to be 14th, 15th in the league and struggling to get past Lyon in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. He's had a really bad first 5 months. And yes, to be honest, he has been honest about it, but I don't really expect much different from the journalists. I think yesterday in the press conference, continually to ask about Onana when he had already answered the question, was a bit unfair. But I think we've got to be honest with ourselves. He's underperformed. He's underperformed. The team have underperformed, and it's simply not good enough.
Yeah, you know what it is. I think first of all, like he's been dealt a really, really bad hand. He didn't want to come when we needed him. He wanted to come later because he probably looked at the squad and thought, I can't get much out of these. He should be doing better than he has been. I'll give it like 100%. We were 4 points off top 4 when he came. We're lucky if we even get in the top half. So he should have. No, we're not. So he should have been doing better. But the thing is, like with the Jamie Jackson situation in the press conference, right? That particular moment isn't like them asking about performances and what's going to change. That's them going, I want Rúben Amorim to say that in the summer we're going to need a new keeper. So I'm going to go and press him, like you said, gegenpress him, into him somehow slipping up and saying, yeah, in the summer we have to get a new keeper. Why? Because that's a good headline. Yeah. That's the stuff that's like, can you just lay off him a little bit? Like, if you want to talk about the game, fine. But trying to get little things out of him just so you can make a headline and get some more clicks on your articles, that's when it gets frustrating. That's when,
Yeah.
I just feel like people who, and I think this goes for both sides, people who are very pro-Amorim and people who are like becoming more anti-Amorim, are ignoring full context of everything. It's been so the comments are just saying one's awful start, 6 wins in 21 is absolutely mad. I don't know if that's true or not.
Premier League, I think it is.
If it is,
something like that.
That's so bad.
Yeah,
I can't. That's beyond relegation form, man. That's horrid. But I also think that. I'm trying to think of a way to put this diplomatically. I can't. I don't think the amount of blame which is being attributed specifically to him is fair.
Yeah.
It's some of it is his
players.
to blame.
It's the players,
but
it's the ball,
I think
everything.
it's the general. He is now receiving the all the built-up shit from the previous, 10 years, and Ten Hag and everything. Because we had a horrible season last season under Ten Hag, right? And then the whole reason Ten Hag was sacked pretty much is because it didn't get better when it came to the new season, despite the new players. And I think half of this squad, maybe 12, 13 players, will, I would say, have a chance of being longer-term players under Amorim. Right, at least the next 2, 3. Well, they'll be here the next 2, 3, 4 seasons. As let's say I'm assuming that Amorim stays and here long term, but there's also such a horrible shit amount of players on the other side of it that I think Amorim has there's almost nothing he can do. There's stuff he can do. I'm not saying there is nothing he can do, but there's a lot that I think is being put on him that he can't change anyway.
I think the biggest challenge with what Amorim is facing is the fact that his identity is in how he sets up his team. Like a lot of managers, he really dies on his shoulder with this thing. He says, if you come in to tell me to be playing 4-2-3-1 or something like that, you've got the wrong guy. This is what I am. The issue is Manchester United's best football has come from what? Transition type football, counter-attack type football. In the last how many years? That's where we've been getting the best type of results. 4-2-3-1 has been our base formation a lot of the time. We've got a set of these players now. I can't think of how many have been used to consistently playing 3 at the back.
None.
Do you know
Barely
what I
any.
mean?
Like De Ligt maybe.
And that,
It's just De Ligt and to some extent Maguire with England.
And with England.
That's about it.
Yeah.
So, we did go into certain structures, like with Erik ten Hag when we were doing 3-1-6. We was doing the overloads or something like that. There'll be times like that where we do that, but these guys have not been coached really to manage in this system. So I don't necessarily think the players are bad, because it's the same players that got you second, got you third, got you titles. They can stand up against a big team and take points off you if they're in a formation, a structure that they're well accustomed to, i.e. sitting back, going on the counter. The issue is they ain't going to come against much opponents where you get the allowance to just sit back and then play in a counter. You're Manchester United, especially when you're at home as well. You got to change the way. And Amorim said it. He's like, I don't want to play this way. Even when he's playing against City and he won against City, he's like, I don't like playing in this way. He wants to be in a position where he can go out and attack. He can, express himself in the style of play he's in, but he's just got players that's not used to it. It's just players that's not used to it. So he's now going to have to go out in a window, bring in guys that can do it on a limited budget to try and get his philosophies and method through. But the problem is,
but bear in mind though, these are professional footballers though, and I know we shouldn't always compare to other clubs in the league because the pressure is different. I get that, but when you look at David Moyes and the Wolves manager, other managers who come in midway through the season who have similar excuses, they couldn't bring in their own players, and they're able to bring in their style of play and get results, better results than Man United, then you've got to put some of that blame on the manager. 100%. What is going on? Why can't these players, who are great players, adapt to your style of play quick enough? Why are you falling out with players? Why have we let go of our best attacker when we have issues up front? You can't. Amorim can't escape from.
But have we brought on this? Is it our issue in bringing in a specialist type manager than getting a day? Because if we brought in a David Moyes, we would be probably getting better results with a David Moyes that's suited to the players suited to a more generalised style of play.
Yeah, but that's because they play a more basic, easy style of football. And Amorim has, when he has played those style of football, like you just mentioned, when you play a deeper that style of football, it's easier to get results quicker, like when we beat Man City, drew against Arsenal, when we beat them on pens and all that. But that's because that's always the easiest way to get results, that's what David Moyes has done. That's what these other teams have done when they've come in. They've gone, right, we're going to basic football. That's what Ten Hag did in our first season, right? To an extent, was we played kind of more counter-attacking transitional football. Was we sat back, we genuinely had a pretty low block, and then we had Marcus Rashford and stuff going. That's because that's the easiest type of way to get results quickly. So then saying if David Moyes is doing that here, why can't you do it there? It's because David Moyes isn't going into Everton and going, right, I'm going to put in roots now for 4 years' time. But that's what Amorim has to do now.
What he's doing now.
And that's what he's doing now. And I feel like, also, Amorim, I do keep saying this because it's true, Amorim initially said no when we were like coming to us mid-season, because he goes, why the fuck would I do that?
Yeah.
It's that he went to the club pretty much, obviously I'm paraphrasing somewhat here, but he basically went to the club and went, if I come in now, it's going to be a shit show. Let me come in the summer and everything. And then now United basically went, well, you have to come in now, otherwise you'll never come in. So he's come in, and lo and behold, it's been a shit show.
Yeah.
Amorim said like it's been more hard than he thought it would be, but he did think it would be ridiculous. And it's been ridiculous. And I think he wanted the summer to come in the beginning of the summer to be able to understand his plans, get his plans right and everything. And so I think that it's slightly counterproductive to judge where we're going to go now based off what's happened this season, because Amorim is only going to get what he actually wanted once the season ends. And what he's going to get is he's going to get the ability and time with his players. There's no matches, right? We're going to every hopefully, bar like Alessandro Martinez, every single player we have who will be at the club in the summer will report to training on the same day one of pre-season. When's the last time that happened for United?
Never.
Yeah, but then the problem is the excuse that then gets made is,
Then first season maybe then did well.
The problem that happens there is players come in and then it's, these players need to get used to the system. They need to get used to playing with their new teammates and stuff like that. And I'm just personally tired of, these excuses. It just sounds like
but it's not an excuse though. It's just true. Players a manager needs time to sit with his players and go, right. This is what we're going to learn. This is what we're going to do.
Though, besides the time, right, we're in the Premier League. Yeah. The Premier League is the quickest, the fastest, quickest, the strongest. You need physicality to be operate. If you look at most teams now, like we went up against Newcastle, right? The most physical team midfield
in the league.
Harvey Barnes was running through our mid. When's the last time you've seen guys just running through our midfield like it wasn't there? We played Eriksen and we fielded Eriksen in midfield. In Europa League, right? Manchester United is going undefeated for a reason. It's slower paced. We can manage those games.
Yeah,
in the Premier League, it's different. This guy is talking about he needs guys with like a certain level of physicality.
He says it all the time.
He says it all the time. We, outside of whoever we buy or whether they can fit the style, we need physicality. We need the basics. These guys that we field generally can't do a hard graft from minute 0 to minute 90. They just can't do the hard graft in that midfield. They just don't do it.
When we play the likes of Ugarte and Casemiro in the middle, I'll say that those are two quite physical players.
But he ain't got the mobility like that.
Ugarte does. And
we don't need one guy.
Yeah, but Ugarte's biggest issue isn't his physicality and stuff. It's the fact that on the ball he's been a bit crap. So when we've been failing in midfield with Ugarte in midfield, it's not because he's not been physical. And on the physical point, think about the two players we've signed on Amorim so far, right? Dorgu he's a proper athlete, right? He's strong, quick, fast. He's an athlete, and he's immediately shown he's capable physically of playing in the Premier League, right? He's kind of like Aiden Heaven when he has played. He's looked calm, composed. He's also looked strong. He wins a lot of his headers. He's an 18-year-old and he's come in and he's physical and he's done well. Obviously, some of his good performances, he played well against Arsenal, he played well in the Europa League. And against Leicester, he was fantastic. Admittedly, Leicester are shocking, but they're still a Premier League club. And then look at the players we're linked to this summer. They are all the same type of players. When we're looking at Cunha, for example, he is a very strong, fast, obviously experienced Premier League player. We're linked with even who else have we been linked with?
We've been linked with
Delap again, physical,
rugged,
strong Premier League player. And other strikers, like for example, like Sesko, right? He's tall, strong, powerful player. Edison, strong player. Like all these players, I think this is the one thing I like, and why I think that despite all the crap we're in, it could look good in the future, even immediately as soon as this summer. As soon as we sign players, is we're bringing the right kind of players in, and they're not players. This is another thing that is really irritating me, is people being like, oh, we're bringing in specialist players. We're not.
Dorgu is a specialist player.
I think
Dorgu, sorry, right, can I just say this, right? I like Dorgu. His athleticism is really good. His pace is really good. On the ball, he's mid.
But it's funny because people are now saying to me that in my groups that he's not looking like an attacking fullback. He's looking like a normal left. And when you deep it, if he can operate as a normal left back, that's going to work in someone else's favour if Amorim's not around. And he can play left.
But that's a big
right.
if, because he's never played left back. So we literally don't know.
Dorgu,
He stayed right wing more than he stayed left back.
Yeah.
Dorgu,
So we have no idea.
I agree with you to an extent that Dorgu has the traits that would potentially maybe best suit a wing back role as opposed to a wing or a full back role. But I meant in terms of the other players we're being
Yeah,
linked
the other
to.
player.
The other players we're being
Who's the guy that we
little
bought,
bit.
the other South American left back again? What's his name?
Leon,
Diego
but
Leon.
he's still.
But Leon's
He's
18,
still
but then
profile,
he's
that
a Sekou
size
Kone
profile.
kind of signing.
Dorgu's 20. It's not like we've
can be
signed
moulded.
some. Yeah, it's like we signed like he's younger
Yeah,
than Collier.
I don't know.
He's only a bit older than Mainu. He's younger. I think Dorgu's younger than Garnacho, for example.
I don't know. I'm still I
mate,
like the player. I'm a bit worried about him. though.
You might not be sold on him, which is fine because. But I don't think that we've brought him in to play left wing back. Doesn't mean necessarily that's the only thing he can do or the only thing he'll be able to do in his career.
I agree.
But I think just the notion that some players are some people are saying that, oh, we're going to sign all these players, and if Amorim doesn't work in 3 years' time, the next manager is going to be left with players who can only play a 3 at the back system.
There is a little bit of that though, because
but-
Cunha's a 10.
Yeah,
He's a left-sided 10.
That's my
He's
biggest
not a winger.
issue.
He's not a striker. He's not a normal 10. He's a left-sided 10.
Yeah,
I would argue more that Cunha is just a flexible player.
Nah, you don't play him as a 9.
When Ineos came in, I was expecting Man United to create an identity, a style of play that we want to play, and regardless of whichever manager comes in, there may be small adaptations, but the players that we sign is not just for this manager, but for the next few managers. So I was really surprised. I think you sort of alluded to it earlier on. I was surprised when Amorim came in, and it's like, oh, now we need players that suit this system.
Yeah.
And then if Amorim goes in 3 years' time, and you've gotten rid of our wingers, and you've got these left attacking mids and right attacking mids, and you've got these wing backs, then where do we go from there? And the question actually I have for everyone is, at what stage do we say that Amorim needs to adapt his style of play? Is it, when we get to a final and it's a must-win game? Is it next season when maybe it's still not working out? At some point, he's got to adapt.
When you
say adapt, how much are you talking
Well,
about?
when you say adapt style of play, are you talking about changing the formation,
The
or
formation
the
to me
role?
is not really
because he has been changing.
He has adapted a bit.
He has been changing stuff in the games. He said in a interview, I'm not sure you've seen it, that came up this morning with Stadium Astro. He literally said, people don't see this, but I've been changing loads of stuff in the games. I think Casemiro is a perfect example of that. He's changed a lot in order to adapt to Casemiro becoming better. When we've not had Lisandro Martinez, so Lenny Yoro's been playing left centre-back, I think we've kind of adjusted a little bit to compensate for that, and Lenny Yoro's looked very good. I think there was a point, it's not so much now, but towards in January, we were changing Garnacho's role slightly, and he started looking better as he's obviously, he's on poor form at the moment, he scored against Newcastle and stuff, but Amorim has been adjusting and changing stuff in the games. He won't change his formation, right?
Yeah.
That's never going to happen,
Tweaks,
and I don't
tweaks.
think he should. But he has been tweaking.
Yeah. So I also don't think the formation to me is the biggest issue. There's a lot of talk about 3 at the back, 4 at the back. I don't really mind. I think you're referring to micro adaptations, the small tweaks that you mentioned there. From a game-to-game basis. I mean, when does this manager say, you know what, this idea of playing, it's not working in the Premier League. We've tried it for this amount of games. It's really not working. These players need to start winning games. When do we change it to a new system that he sticks with permanently? I don't mean a single game against Man City, for example.
See, I don't think he ever will. I think this is it now.
I don't think he should.
But then if we just keep losing games.
The thing is, I think, for example, against Newcastle, right, at home, we got pumped. Why did we get pumped? Because it was Casemiro and Eriksen duo in midfield and we got ran over, right? So this time at St. James's, he played Agate and Bruno, and then it was Eriksen as a number 10 who basically dropped in and was in midfield throughout a lot of the game. So he basically learned from that. I'm not going to play 2, I'm going to drop one in to play 3. So I think there'll be tweaks like that, but I think my overall thing on Amorim is I like the guy. I like him. He's charismatic, good personality, good man manager, I think. But I think that there's going to be ultimately when we look back at Ineos and we say, right, so when you guys came in, you said there needs to be a game model. You have decided that the game model for Manchester United is going to be, and I know we keep banging on about it, but there's 3 at the back, the inside 2 10s. That's going to be your game model. I don't agree with that direction. I just don't, because ultimately, first of all, it's not really Man United. It's not really what we've been used to. It's not how we play. Those things are important. If someone goes to Barcelona now and goes, oh yeah, I want to play 3 at the back with 2 10, they're not going to accept it. That's not Barcelona. That's not how they play football. In the next 2 to 3 years, while Amorim is here, if a bright, good winger comes through in our academy, we're probably going to have to move him on because we don't have a place for a winger in our team.
Yeah.
I don't like this direction. I like him, but on the whole, I don't like it. And I do think we are going to hit problems later down the line. If Amorim doesn't work out, the players that he's brought in, they're not going to be easily adjustable. They're just not, in my opinion.
I do
anyway.
feel like, so on this question of how we're wording this thing about the tactics and Amorim, he's changing. He's doing tweaks, but I just feel like people are not seeing it too much because we're not winning. We're not consistently winning. People are only going to notice something when we're winning. You know what I mean? They're only going to want this setup because he's like you said, he's been playing mainly false nine, striker. Bruno dropped into deep. You know, playing like he's trying everything, right? And we're just like, oh, what's our identity? What's our identity? Oh, he needs to make the adjustments. He needs to make changes. He's doing it. It's just that it's not producing results. So therefore, we're all looking at it like,
yeah, but then
he
when
needs
does
to do more. He needs to do more. And it's always going to come down to the only significant change that he makes where people's going to be like, okay, he's adjusted, is if he changes the formation for the general masses of the fan base. That's the only play where we're all going to physically look and say, okay, he's made a change because he is doing it. He's doing it literally like almost every other game.
Yeah.
I think at some stage, though, you have to go, all right, it's either you go now and you leave because you're not winning. Look, football's a results business, as people would say. And at some stage, it will get to, you've got to leave now because you're not winning games, or you've got to permanently change. If it means you've got to change your formation, you've got to change something to get us results. Because I can, give him the grace for this season for all the reasons that we mentioned beforehand. I completely understand that. That's fair enough. But I'm thinking already next season, he's put a lot of pressure on himself for next season. If this doesn't work next season, he's got to go or he's got to make changes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that because Amorim's been banging on about the fact that he doesn't have time because you don't get time as United manager. And I think we'll see Sir Alex Ferguson, we found that out since Sir Alex that you don't get time at this club.
Yeah.
Like Solskjaer got as much rope as I think any manager has got so far. And I think Amorim will probably end up getting more rope than Solskjaer did. But like Ten Hag didn't get loads of rope. David Moyes got no fucking rope. Louis van Gaal didn't get much rope. Jose Mourinho, as soon as things started going south, United, just like
he decided he was leaving.
Yes.
He made the call and he was like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you I'm leaving, but in my press conferences, I'm going to tell you I'm leaving. Like, you're going to sack me and pay me 10 million to go. That's what's going to happen.
I do feel though like it's very difficult for a manager to come into this club and be given that time and just.
It doesn't happen, and it's not going to happen. But I think he's also the only manager who's said that and actually acknowledged that. Other managers have said this will take time, this will take patience, this will take stuff. He's basically gone, it probably will, but I don't have it, so we're going to... Yeah, I think and that's why I think he's looking towards the summer, and that's why he wanted the summer initially. And that's why I'm so reluctant to like put any solid like long-term criticisms on what's happening right now, because to a certain extent I see right now as a bit of a shocking free hit. That kind of like everything had already unravelled before Ten Hag even left, right?
But one thing about the free hit is that, say we get to December of next season and things aren't looking good, the record's going to follow him. So when it's not going good in December, they're going to look at his win percentage and his wins and his losses and draws since coming to Man United. And because this season has been so bad, even if he starts okay next season, on the grand scheme of things, it will look bad. And then pressure builds, and then media start adding pressure on with their headlines and all this and that. It's not good for him with the way he started. That's
like Arteta when he went to Arsenal, right? People are talking about, I don't like the style that he's playing. I don't like the style of play. I don't see an identity. They didn't like it when he was finishing 8th. It took a while.
About 3 seasons.
It took about 3 seasons. He started bringing in his plays. He started getting rid of the plays he didn't see. Then they started liking his style of play. Then all of a sudden it was amazing. You look at like, for example, now Eddie Howe. He's a guy that took Newcastle from relegation, got them to 11th, then finished 4th, I think, Champions League. Then fell out of Champions League. The pressures finished like 7th or whatever, like outside of Europe. Then now they're lounging somewhere like 5th or whatever. Like, progress isn't linear. You could start off like having good seasons like that. It's like just trading. And then you look at, even with Eric, like with all of our managers, it's been like, oh, they're in Champions League 1 minute and next minute they're out of it, they're 8th.
It's been our story for the last 11 years, 12 years.
And we need to ask ourselves as a fan base, when are we gonna start doing something a bit differently as a fan base in terms of the amount of time that we give these managers and like, because for me it's like
that's United's fan
what
base
are we
are
doing?
never gonna. The only way that United's fan base change is if a manager breaks the cycle.
Yeah.
Right, United fans, they won't change
They
because, and I feel like, although it would be great if United fans did change, it's never going to happen because
We're quite patient though, in my opinion.
I think compared to some other
Yeah.
clubs.
we're not bad.
I think the fans.
Do you reckon?
There's a big difference between those who are saying stuff like and those who are doing stuff, if that makes sense. Like United fans will sit there and they'll chat shit and they won't like Amorim and they're all on Twitter and Instagram, whatever, and the TikTok comments. But then the fans that do stuff, i.e. go to games, involve themselves in fans forums, buy season tickets, do go to the protests and everything. They're fans that generally actually do have patience. They do. And that's never going to change. But
I'm
it's
talking patience as like a club. Because are you seeing
Oh, as in the board?
Yeah, are you seeing patience as
I'm
2
seeing a lot of
years or
patience
what
at
is
the
it?
moment.
What's the average the manager's been getting these days?
I
Like,
think when you
2.5
look at
seasons-ish.
Maresca in Chelsea, a lot of Chelsea fans are putting pressure on him
Yeah,
already that
on
he
him.
should go. And this is also his first season. And look at where they are in the table. Yes, and I think that's a
that is
that's a
the
result of-
culture of Chelsea.
Exactly.
They're like
And I'm
they're
saying
like
we're
a
not
rich
as bad as
Watford.
that.
well,
We're
that's
not
the
as bad as
culture of
that.
Chelsea. But is he? Like, my thing is outside of what the fan bases are doing, is Ineos gonna give Amorim the time that he needs, or are they gonna get
think they
tweaked?
will.
The way I'm
Next
going to
season.
phrase that, my answer to that is, I think Ineos are very rational with their decisions. If they think if they can't see something, they do just act and get rid, right? So they gave Ten Hag the contract, but then as soon as they saw that shit isn't going to happen, they did get rid of him. They brought Dan Ashworth in, but as soon as they saw that, right, they're actually we don't think this is going to work, they got rid of him. But I think if they can see something can work, I think they will be patient. I think they're just Ineos. I think they've made mistakes. We all agree, but I think they're quite deliberate and rational with their decision making, and I think that's going to really work in Amorim's favour.
Yeah.
I really do.
I also think they can't afford to get rid of Amorim anytime soon.
Financially.
Financially, they can't afford it.
Ironically, the only way they can financially afford it is if he gets into the Champions
Champions.
League. But if we get into the Champions League, then it's fine. He won't get rid of him anyway.
And as we mentioned earlier, we've changed to a new system. Amorim's going to be here for a long time, I think. I think he will be. Unless
I hope
it
so.
gets really, and I hope so as well. Unless it gets really, really bad, he'll be here for a long time. But I think he really needs to get things going.
Yeah.
He needs to get the best out of our best players. Our so-called best players are not in good form. You know, Rashford, Manu, Mount. I'll put in that category.
Our best players haven't been
Garnacho.
available. Is actually what I would say.
Only Bruno and De Ligt out of our best players have actually been.
But all
been
of
this
our
season.
actual best players, Ahmad, Manu, Lissandro Martinez, recently haven't even been available. So the best players out of our worst bunch, I would say, haven't been performing. But our actual best players and our actual players that are fucking good players haven't really even been available in the last 2 months. They all got injured on like the same day.
Yeah, I think
before the
it's
Spurs
a
game.
mix. I think it's a mix. I think he needs to be able to get better from Garnacho. He has to. And, Garnacho's a winger, and you're asking him to play as a
Or we
front
just
end.
sell him.
And I think he's slightly adjusted Garnacho
Yeah,
style
he's
of
got
play.
wider, yeah.
And I appreciate that. At the end of the day, he's not getting enough goals, not getting enough assists. He keeps shooting every single time. And I get it. That's an individual person, and that's Garnacho. He needs to work on his decision making. But also, the manager should be getting into his ear. The manager should be changing things with the way he plays.
And just to move on, you've talked about attackers. The one final thing I want to touch on is the whole Marcus Rashford stuff that's going on at the moment. So you mentioned earlier in the show that you said we got rid of our best attacker when we were struggling to score goals. I'm assuming that was talking about Rashford. And there's been a fair amount of what I would call revisionism around Rashford in the last few months. Yeah. So Rashford, the whole situation, what happened was Rashford was playing this season, but under Ten Hag. He had good games, he had bad games. He had some games where, like when we played Porto, where he looked fantastic and then he got taken off at half time. That kind of stuff. And he did look good in bursts, but then there were some games, I think people have kind of forgotten this, where he did look pretty shit.
Yeah.
Toward the early this season. And then Amorim comes in, and Rashford is initially playing. Rashford scored Amorim's first goal within like minutes in the game against Ipswich. And Rashford was playing all right. And then Rashford then gets dropped for the City game, and then 2 days later he films or records, does the interview with Henry Winter, where Henry Winter asked him, have you seen the report saying that United would be open to selling you? Which I think were slightly out of context. I think what that was the club saying they would be open to selling anybody, but then Rashford is the most high profile of the word anybody, so therefore at the time is the headline name. And then Rashford then replies to them saying, I think I'm ready for a new challenge. And then Amorim then comes out and says, Rashford's not in the squad at the moment because he's not working hard enough in training and all that stuff. And he said that about several players. Like when Garnacho was at the team, when we couldn't find a spot for Casemiro and other players weren't playing properly and stuff. But then obviously Rashford doesn't come back into any of the squads, bar that Newcastle where he didn't play. And then we got rid of him, and at Villa he's starting to grow more back into a player that we saw a couple of seasons ago. Not as good, I would say, but playing well in the scoring the Premier League, bracing the FA Cup, assist against PSG in the Champions League.
He should never have been taken off against.
I completely agree with that.
So
Unai Emery completely fucked that decision.
He's so good.
But I think that a lot of the stuff surrounding Rashford now and the resulting backlash that Amorim's getting, I think is wrong. I think it was a much more of a... So people are saying, why didn't Amorim force Rashford out of the squad, force him out of the club? As far as I remember, I don't think that's what happened. As far as I remember, Rashford wasn't forced out. I think Rashford... There is a certain extent of United being like not confirming whether they would keep him or not, but then basically saying that could be an attractive sale in the same way that Mainu could be an attractive sale, monetary-wise. Garnacho could be an attractive sale, whatever. Or even Ahmad being an attractive sale as he got 100 million bid from him. Ahmad's, if we were to sell him, that would also be pure profit because he signed a new contract. So Ahmad's in the same situation as all these academy players in terms of being like pure profit sale and all that. But I don't understand why Amorim is getting so much flack for the whole Rashford stuff because I don't think that it's like what people are saying is correct. I don't think that Amorim forced Rashford out of the squad, and I also think it's the best decision anyway that he leaves.
Yeah,
I think so. He's done a stint at United, and let's be honest, there's nothing that's gonna make me feel like, we made the bad decision with Rashford. To be honest, I've seen it all. I've seen him under multiple managers, and I know what we can get out of him. And to be honest, he's not a guy for what we're paying for him, where, for that level of performance where he's in and out, one season you're hoping that he has, scores 20 odd goals or whatever it is, or reach double figures, and then another season you're not really getting that output. He's not a guy that should be getting that type of fee, and we're trying to set a whole new precedence in the club anyway in terms of that. It's not someone that you want around when you're trying to renegotiate with other potential players that you're bringing in, and then you're going through contract negotiations. It's not a good look. And for me, with Rashford, sometimes you just need a new environment. He's in a new environment. He's got a new challenge. For me, his mental state is probably in a better place as well for that. And he's playing his best football. He's got a point to prove. Hence why you're probably seeing that. What I'm seeing from Rashford is no different to what I saw from him at Manchester. It's not like he's a new player. I just feel like people like to hype these things up. It was like when Sancho went to Chelsea, everyone was like, oh, every step over. It was like, oh, amazing. Look, we've seen all of these performances at Manchester United. It's just that we don't see what you're seeing consistently enough. And he's having a good stint at Aston Villa. And long may it continue, by the way, because we're not having successful longs. You know what I mean? Malacia already is coming back to Manchester United. We need him to do well. We need the funds, and we need to reinvest into the squad. And someone like Rashford, I mean, I don't know, man. I think he suits the style of Aston Villa. I think he suits that play. I think he's supported and backed by a really good manager and a really good team as well that are physical athletes. Like I keep going back to the physicality thing. And they can do a lot of the running for him as well. And Manchester United are in a place where we needed him to be tracking back as well, covering those wings as well as attacking. And for some reason, it felt like he would preserve his energy throughout the game so he can just focus on doing the bursts and sprints. And he wasn't able to do the both on a consistent basis. So, I just think we can find someone.
I think people are forgetting that to a certain extent, some people wanted him gone anyway before the whole the whole Amorim thing.
A lot of last summer.
Yeah, people because he scored the 30-goal season, and then the next season under Ten Hag's second season, he wasn't great.
He wasn't.
No. And that was so he had the 30-goal season, but then the season before that he wasn't fantastic. So it's like 3 of his last 4 full seasons before this one, he had the 30-goal season, and then 3 others where everyone was like, why aren't you being consistent?
Yeah.
So there was I would say a loud minority who were already leaning towards we should probably cash in. And that's what United are doing now. And then now everyone's angry. Not everyone's angry, but this is what I mean. I think that like people are like not really considering the whole picture or forgetting that this was a potential scenario even without Amorim or any of that stuff.
It's laziness, to be honest. I think it's so easy and it's kind of lazy to just say, oh, United should have never have gotten rid of Rashford when, as you say, really and truly beforehand, he wasn't playing that great. So Amorim did what he needed to do. To me, it's just a shame that for someone who's Manchester born and bred, who could have actually become a one-club man if things went differently, why has it not worked out? He would make a better striker in our team than Højlund right now. Like I think easily, and I think he probably suits Amorim's style of play better than Højlund in terms of the running in behind. Maybe his hold-up play, back to goal, he needs to improve at that.
But Højlund's not good at that anyway.
Exactly. So it's just a shame. Why is it that we have this player who's technically a Man United player and he's playing a Champions League night for Villa against PSG and playing really, really well, and we're playing Lyon today, and we have gone out.
But the answer to that question is because in context he's coming to the end of his career at the club. It's just the end.
Yeah.
No, but it's from that, does it have to get to that? It just has got to that point.
Yeah. So
one club players don't exist anymore, right? Look at Trent, right? I back Trent going to Real Madrid. It's maybe a bit sneaky that he's gone on a free, so his club, but he's won trophies with his boyhood club who he supports. He's given them, 20 years of whatever, and now he wants to go and do something else, experience something else. I bet you that Marcus Rashford wants to go to Barcelona this summer. I really, really think that's where he wants to end up this summer. Because he wants to go experience something else. Yeah. I think more than anything, that's what he's thinking. Because that's what Trent's thinking. Trent's thinking, I want to go and experience something else. When David Beckham, right, when he went to Real Madrid, partly that was obviously there was a tenuous relationship with the club and all that, blah, blah, blah. But he's like, I want to go to a different country, experience something new, experience Real Madrid. He went to PSG, he went to all these other AC Milan and all that. Obviously, that was later in his career. But I think that's because there's a general trend now of players wanting to go and experience. Because we're so much more, there's so much more exposure for European leagues now because they're all on TV, the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League. Now, players are seeing that, right? They're also, because in the off times, they're watching these games. Yeah. And I think Rashford wants to go explore something else. He is just naturally coming to the end of his career at United, which is why we are now where we are now.
Yeah. What I'll say with Rashford as well is that I think he kind of falls into a category, along with Pogba, along with Martial, maybe Lingard. He's been better for us than those bunch, but he falls in that category in terms of the club have let him down and he's let himself down. Yeah. It's both-sided. It's not one or the other. I think with Marcus Rashford, he's a player who you can see in him. He's very to himself. He's not very outspoken. He's not very outgoing. He's not, always smiling, always having a laugh. He's not that kind of guy. I think that internally, Rashford does have some mental battles that we will never be privy to. But I do think Rashford probably does experience that quite a bit. And I've said this before, but Andy Mitten, someone who's so close to the club, someone who has such great relationships to the club, he's done so many interviews with so many players and been with players on so many different occasions. With Rashford, he's never been able to do that. Rashford's never opened up to anyone near the club, a journalist, nothing. Henry Winter, he has some trust in, but there's issues like that Rashford has had. I think that has also led to this, which is basically that the environment, like you said this before, the environment isn't right for him at Man United anymore, unfortunately. We know that Marcus Rashford has world-class potential, but we don't see that on a regular occurrence at Man United. So when you add that up with the fact that ultimately he's not the perfect fit for Rúben Amorim, add in the fact that he's on 300 plus K a week, add in the fact that Ineos are now here, it's a different board and they want to save money. It just, for him to stay, for him to be at the club, it just doesn't add up. So him doing well at Aston Villa, great, do it. Anthony's doing well at Betis, great, go do it. That's it, it's finished. And it's sad, but it's what it is. It is a shame, but it is what it is.
Amorim keeps saying he don't have time. If you don't have time, how are you going to be waiting for Rashford to come of age?
Yeah, you can't.
Secondly, as well, like this, you just can't keep depreciating assets in a hope of them coming good, and then before you know it, they're walking out the club for free. We need to be making decisions now. We should have made the decision after he scored 30 goals and got PSG money. Yeah. And whatever they wanted to pay us. 80,
oh, mate, if we got rid of them there would have been an uproar from the United fans.
I know they would have.
It would have been an uproar.
I think so. Yeah. I was going to say, so I think to wrap up what we've been spoken about, I think it's been perfectly summed up by one super chat we've had from Eminem, which not the Eminem, but it says Eminem on my phone, man. What can I say? It's from, saying Rashford's not worked out because the club is not consistent. Environment to perform is key, and the fan base will not understand that. I think that sums it up pretty well. It's still sad. It's sad. It's unfortunate because I would want to say like Rashford is the first academy. So every Man United fan, right, experiences an academy player, watches their whole career. For me, that's the first one I have is Rashford, because I watched him, like, he's the first academy player I remember vividly watching their debut. Obviously, he had all the crazy debut start he had in the first few seasons, and I've watched the entire time at United. I watched his debut, watched everything else, and now I'm watching him leave. And so Rashford will therefore always be one of my favourite United players because we naturally have a more of a connection to academy players. That's the blood life of this club. But I also am happy to accept that it's ending. This is what happens. He's been a senior player in the club for 9 to 10 seasons. That's enough, I think, to call it very much a success.
Sure. He's had a good season.
Huge success. He's won Europa League. He's won FA Cups. He's won other cups. He's been one of the only players ever to score 30 goals a season for us. That doesn't happen every day of the week, especially in the last 10 years.
It's just that
I think it's the end.
It's just
that's it.
Yeah, it's just that it could have been better.
It could have been better.
And also, like, the thing about one man clubs, one man clubs you don't see them anymore. Like, for example, Carvajal at Real Madrid, or like Gavi will go on to be a one man club at Barcelona. The point is, the big clubs, they can hold on to their best players.
Yeah.
And that should have been us. If we were good, like the super chat said, if we were good, the right environment, he would have stayed. He would have been our all-time top goal scorer, beating Wayne Rooney's record. It should have been that.
I just think Rashford would have stayed even if we just treated him well. I feel like he would have stayed. There was once upon a time we would never think about any of certain. Now it's free for all. Anyone could leave, but there was a time where it was like, nah.
It's just.
I don't care what happens. You're not going anywhere.
I think it is more than anything. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be anything more than that. It doesn't have to be blame put everywhere. True. I think it's just an unfortunate situation. That's it. That's the end of it. But in terms of what you've said about these big clubs making them one club players, hopefully that will maybe come again with the current crop we've got in the academy, because Nick Cox is cooking some serious talent in that academy, right?
Yeah.
We've seen that there were 7 or 8 of them in training yesterday and everything. But I think to wrap up this show, I'm going to go back to the beginning, what we were talking about, and ask you for score predictions for tonight. The Lyon game, 2-2. Is it going to extra time? Is it 90 minutes? Is it penalties? What's the scoreline? I'm going to go 3-1 United.
Strong.
I think one of those Bruno Fernandes carry jobs in the Europa League once again, as he does. Bruno brace, Mason Mount assist, Højlund goal.
Oof, that's a bit cool.
That's what I'm saying,
cool. Yeah, all right. I will go 2-1, simply because maybe you can't get
in 90
3
minutes.
In 90 minutes. I think we get the job done. Bruno carry job.
Firms, what are you thinking?
Yeah,
2-1.
You thinking 2-1?
We're not gonna not concede. I just pray, but we're not.
90 minutes.
90 minutes.
90 minutes.
Yeah, I
Raf?
say 2-1 in the 90 minutes. A goal from Bruno and Højlund to get a goal today. Amen. And then also probably a mistake from one of our defenders or something. Yeah.
So just caveating it with someone is definitely making an error.
Yeah, for sure.
But we'll wrap up the show there. Thank you, Firms, Raf, Nick, for coming on. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you about United, despite the fact that everything is shit. Thank you for everyone who's been watching. Let us know in the comments what you think. Let us know your score predictions. Let us know how wrong you think we've been over the last hour or so that we've been speaking. And, we're all just going to sit here, pray, hope for, I was going to say 3 points, for a win into semi-finals. And also, worth noting that Rangers versus Bilbao is 0-0 at the moment. Yeah. Rangers have a chance, Rangers, if you want to knock Bilbao out, please. That would be fucking fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next Thursday at 12:30 for episode 60.
Peace.